Hello everybody, I am back today with another weapon video as promised. And in this video, we're going to be talking about the Horror's Least reprised pulse rifle. Now, I want to spend the time first on the pulse rifle, but for anybody who is interested, after we discuss the pulse, kind of where it fits in the current sandbox, I would like to discuss primaries as a whole, because primaries are not really favored in this current sandbox. I have some opinions as to why that is, and they are not simply just buff primaries, though I do think that's a step in the right direction. I don't think that's necessarily the solution. So if you're interested in that, after the discussion of Horror's Least, I want to spend just a little bit of time kind of discussing my opinions on that. So stick around towards the end of the video for that. Now, getting to Horror's Least. This is another reprisal of Horror's Least, which has historically been predominantly a PvP weapon. 540s, the rapid fire pulses as a whole, from my point of view, have predominantly been PvP weapons when people are talking a lot about 540s. It is Horror's Least. It is that one kinetic one that I can't remember off the top of my head from the Crucible that used to get Headseeker and I think Rangefinder Headseeker. Can't remember the name of it right now. Too lazy to look it up, but that's fine. Not important right now. And Darkest Before is kind of the poster child from Prophecy Dungeon of the 540 pulse rifle archetype. And I was a big fan of Darkest Before. I was not the biggest fan of Horror's Least. Horror's Least had great rolls, and it still does. We're going to talk PvP. But more importantly, this feels like one of the first, other than Darkest Before, this feels like one of the first really good PvE 540s. There's not a lot that come to mind, and I'm sure somebody in the comments is going to say, well, I love this one. Well, I love this one. And that's fantastic. But generally speaking, 540s have not been popular in the PvE sandbox since really the beginning of Destiny. Horror's Least does some work to change that. Now, to get this out of the way, this has almost every barrel you could ever want. There's so many barrels on this thing, it's not even funny. There's more barrels than mags. It's nuts. Whatever barrel you want, you can get on this weapon. I, especially with the changes to recoil direction, going back to the way they were before deterministic, will always lean towards arrowhead break. There's not a lot of other options that matter, especially on a 540 where you're going to get a lot of kick, you're going to get a lot of screen movement. The more you can rein that in, the better this weapon will feel. I highly, highly recommend arrowhead break. For that plus 30 recoil direction, it's going to bring you to a nice 85. And for anybody who's maybe coming to this late, with your recoil direction, you want it to end in 5, which is going to be more vertical, or you want it to be 100. Because that is going to keep your recoil more vertical, keep it from kicking around to the sides. Even if it's a low number, you want that number to end in a 5, and you will generally have a better experience. Getting it to 85 is going to narrow that kind of recoil direction cone, and it's going to reduce the amount of kick that you will see and just make it feel generally better, especially if you're hip firing it, things like that. It's just going to make it feel much more usable. And so short of that, go entirely preference, but don't pick one that's going to take recoil direction unless you are prepared and know how you want to handle that. When it comes to mags, for the purposes of the role I am going to recommend, I would say something with deeper ammo. So you want the appended mags, you want the tactical mags, you want the extended mags. Those are going to be your best options. This is not a gun that if you're using it properly, you're going to be reloading a lot if you have the role that I want to tell you about today, which is going to be supercharged magazine in the 3rd column and jolting feedback in the 4th column. 3rd column is, for PvE, in my opinion, there's really only 2 options, being that supercharged mag is available. Supercharged Mag is incredibly powerful. When amplified, ammo is gradually transferred from reserves to the magazine. While Speed Booster is active, you regenerate ammo faster and overflow the magazine, improving the magazine's size. Getting amplified while using an arc weapon, which Horror's Least is very easy. Get a couple kills, boom, you're amplified. Run around the arena, you're getting a faster reload than I think Centrifuge gets when you're running around with it. So they kind of just took an exotic perk from Centrifuge, made it better, and put it on Horror's Least, which, as somebody who liked Centrifuge when it came out, I kind of feel a little disrespected, but that's a whole other conversation. Supercharged Magazine is one of the most powerful third column perks I think introduced in Renegades. There is also Trickle Charge, which is good if you are doing a Bolt Charge build, because this gun does come with Rolling Storm. So there's opportunities to kind of utilize that there. But Trickle Charge for me is more of a DPS perk. That's more for a weapon like a machine gun, like we discussed in our last video. That is going to keep you firing, doing more damage longer. Where Supercharged Mag lends itself more to the moment-to-moment gameplay, killing a couple ads, moving, repositioning, killing a couple more ads. Supercharge, in my opinion, is better on primaries, whereas Trickle Charge is going to be your option for special and for heavy weapons. So I'm not as keen on it when it comes to Horror's Least. So I'm saying Supercharged Mag, you can do Overflow. Overflow is a classic. Everybody knows how to make the most of Overflow. And in a sandbox that's promoting you to use your special and heavy weapons a lot more, you can get a lot of benefit from Overflow. So that's an option. I really don't look at anything else for PvE, especially, some of these performance like heating up, Zen moments, stuff like that. They're not as important in PvE, especially when you can just throw Arrowhead Break on there. It's going to be everything you need it to be. Fourth column, you have a lot of great options. I say Jolting Feedback because Jolting Feedback, again, feeds into Supercharged Magazine. They are just going to feed off of each other. The best part about Jolting Feedback is on a pulse rifle, it takes 13 shots. So it's going to take 5 bursts to get that initial proc of jolting. Being a rapid fire, you're going to get to that 5th burst much faster, which means you're going to be applying jolt more frequently, which means you're going to kill more ads with arc, therefore making you amplified, feeding back into Supercharged Magazine. And when you're amplified, you're going to proc that Jolting Feedback in only 9 shots now. So you're going from 5 bursts to 3 bursts and continually proccing Jolting Feedback again and again and again and again, which is just going to serve to keep your amplification rolling, which is going to continue to feed rounds into the magazine. And the next thing you know, you're going to have a 90-round mag ready to fire of Horror's Least that is applying jolt to seemingly everything. And it is also important to remember with Jolting Feedback, it is not the same as kinetic tremors in the sense that all of those shots need to be on a single enemy. It is tracked per bullet. So you could shoot 3 different ads and then put 2 pulses into an orange bar and still proc Jolting Feedback. It is not 13 rounds on a single target. It is 13 rounds, which makes jolting one of the more usable, arguably the most usable of these verb perks on weapons. It is not the strongest. I will never deny that. Jolting Feedback is probably not the strongest of them. I would argue maybe that's destabilizing. Or if you're building into it, that could be Scorch/Ignite. But Jolting is just so easy to use. It doesn't care what subclass you're on. It doesn't care what you're shooting. It just cares that you're shooting it. And it just works, baby. It just works. If you wanted to do a damage perk, I get it. Frenzy's right there. Kill Clip's right there. Rampage is right there. Those, in my eyes, those are the PvP perks. Maybe not so much Frenzy. Damage is not this weapon's issue. 15% damage from Frenzy is not going to make Horror's Least a tier better than it currently is. Rampage is an interesting option because of Supercharged Magazine. Honestly, if you are using Supercharged Magazine, as far as I'm concerned, Kill Clip is not even an option. Because if you have a 90 round mag, guess what you're not doing? Reloading. All right? Kill Clip is out the window if you are following this build in the third column. It just does not work. I'm not talking to you, Furbo. Damn Furbo. Kill Clip is out. It's there. And it's kind of one of those bait things for PvE because people are going to see it and they're going to be like, ooh, Kill Clip. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Frenzy is fine, but 15% is not going to change this weapon all that much. And Rampage is great with the change. They expire one stack at a time. So the uptime on Rampage is much higher. And that would be the best damage perk for Supercharged Magazine. That will be a game changer for this weapon. Because if you can keep it at that 21% to 33%, that 2 to 3 stack range, you're going to be putting out a lot of damage with this thing. You're going to be killing a lot of ads much faster. This is going to be one of the best primaries in the game. It already is with jolting feedback, in my opinion. With Rampage, it goes to the next level. So if you're going to do a damage perk, do Rampage. If you want to have the most ad clear potential and the most kind of team support potential because everybody benefits from Jolt, I suggest jolting feedback. That's the role I have. That's the role that you're seeing in all this footage. It's the supercharged with jolting feedback. It's an incredible combination. And again, in a sandbox where primaries don't really feel like they have a place, it kind of makes Horror's Least feel like it fits. It makes it feel like you are not being a detriment to yourself or to others by bringing a primary into the content because you have a really good primary. But there's one more piece to the puzzle here that we need to understand. The origin trait, which is a chance drop, or you can get one guaranteed drop of it if you do the weekly Grandmaster Vanguard alert, is Accelerated Assault. This comes on the air quote shiny version of the weapon when it drops fully masterworked, no matter what tier it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, any of them. If the weapon drops masterworked with that gold border around it, that means it has Accelerated Assault. Now, Accelerated Assault does two different things depending on if you have a single shot weapon or a multi-shot weapon. We're going to focus on the multi-shot weapon aspect of it for Horror's Least because that is what Horror's Least is. Scoring 3 hits with at least 0.8 seconds or at most 1.2 seconds between each other refills 10% of the magazine and grants increased damage for 4 seconds. It is a 5% damage increase, according to the information that I am seeing here. And when enhanced, that gets a bump to 6%. So we're getting a free 5% damage buff for shooting dudes that we're already going to be shooting with our gun. And we're going to refill part of our magazine, which we're also doing with Supercharged Magazine, thanks to jolting feedback. And when we're shooting those enemies to proc jolting feedback to get amplified to feed Supercharged Mag, we're reloading our mag because of Accelerated Assault, which is letting us do more damage, with the deeper magazine, which is letting us keep proccing jolting feedback, which is letting us do more damage, get more arc defeats, which is keeping us amplified, and it turns into this cycle where you are just perpetually amplified and never reloading this gun because it just shoots forever. It's like shooting a pulse machine gun. And if it did more damage, it would basically be a pulse machine gun. But primaries being not as great in the sandbox almost don't matter as much when you can just fire them forever. And especially with this being a pulse rifle that can hit at, pretty decent ranges, if you're doing like Grandmaster or higher level content, you can just kind of plink a bit from the back. You stay out of danger. You're going to kill it eventually, and it's not going to maybe do the most against champions, but it's going to let you kind of lock down overloads and stuff with jolting. It's a good gun. And it's effective. As far as, primaries go right now in this current sandbox, you cannot do much better than Horror's Least. And, to do better, you're going to have to get into the heat weapons, which there's a lot of good ones there, and I want to talk about those in the future. This is a fantastic gun, and even in PvP, it still remains fantastic. I would still recommend Arrowhead for PvP. You might want to swap to Accurized or Steady Rounds, depending on your preferences. Higher stability does help a lot with PvP, especially because it's flinch resistance and it's going to control some of the kick on that weapon. But you're probably going to go Accurized. You have to go Zen Moment. Transcendent Moment is interesting because when you get kills with it, it will give you stability and handling, which again, stability is very good on a 540 pulse. But odds are you're going to go Zen. If you get Transcendent, try it. See if you like it. You're going to go Zen Moment, and you're either going to go Kill Clip or Rampage. I would be very intrigued, especially in 6s. New Rampage probably makes this weapon feel really good, and I would definitely want to try it. If you can keep it around that 2 stack and get to 3 stack pretty consistently, I believe it's a 2 burst. So this is a really, really good gun. And then Kill Clip is just the tried and true. It's always going to be there. So Horror's Least remains a top tier pulse rifle for PvP as well, for those who observe PvP. Now, I want to talk, this is the part where I'm going to talk a little bit about primaries in the current sandbox. I don't necessarily believe that primaries are so weak that they are the problem in the sandbox. I think the sandbox is the problem with the primary and not the other way around. I don't think primaries are too weak. I wouldn't say no to maybe a 10 to 15% damage buff. Then again, 10% probably doesn't move that needle. But I feel like if we're talking, I've seen some people say 20 to 30%. I think that's way too much. And that just, you're going to start hurting kind of the bottom rung of special weapons when you start buffing primaries that much. The issue is, and I hate to beat a dead horse, is the portal and the way it forces you to engage with content. There is no more, at the high level, when you're trying to gear, when you're trying to get your tier 5s, tier 4s, tier 5s, there is no casual play of Destiny in the current sandbox. There is no, let me get on the strike playlist and just run it and turn my brain off and have a good time. That's where primaries shine. There's none of that anymore in the current sandbox. The current sandbox is put it on Grandmaster or Ultimate and play around all of these additional modifiers. You cannot play just a casual run of Catch Crash. If you want to get rewards, you have to play it at its highest level for you. And by doing so, you are inherently making primaries weaker because those enemies are beefier, they are stronger, they need to be killed faster because they are more of a threat. And the other issue just being the shared pool of lives, which I think is a huge mistake. And I think is something that needs to go away entirely outside of being a choice modifier or outside of the highest end, raid and dungeon content. When we're talking about raids, dungeons, things like that, fine. When you have those life pools, that's part of that experience and that content historically. That's fine. I deal with it. Destiny has lost its most casual forms to play it because they are hidden in the director, and doing that content does not reward you. Yes, it has drops, but it does not reward you because you're getting old guns from old loot pools, and regardless of if those guns can still be used or not, they are not the shiny new tier 4, tier 5 gear that people are looking for right now. And so primaries are not bad. The way you have to play Destiny is bad. And I really hope that Bungie can figure out how to strike the balance without getting into my deep opinions on the portal. I think the portal does serve a good purpose in terms of being a hub for content that has been brought back, like Catch Crash. I think it's a good catch-all for most of Destiny's content. The fact that that is the only way to get rewards in Destiny is the issue. And especially that you have to always be playing on the highest difficulties at all times. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You shouldn't have to. There's no player out there who's going to tell you that I always want to play on ultimate difficulty in every piece of content. It's just not the reality. And it's not an issue of like elitist mentality versus casual mentality. It's just a fact. Everybody, every once in a while, just has fun running a strike playlist and just getting some guns at the end. I just want to farm this gun and get a good roll on it. And I don't agree with the fact that the game does not reward you for doing that anymore. I'm not saying that the game should dump loot on you. I'm not saying, it should always be giving you that reward every single time. I just think that it should be a possibility. I don't think that by forcing everybody into the portal and making them play everything at the highest possible difficulty that they can play at right now is a sustainable future for the game. And primaries are a victim of that. They are not the cause of that in the way a lot of people seem to be thinking. Because when you just talk about buffing damage, it changes the formula, because now you're buffing it in content that doesn't need that buff. If you're just a casual player who's trying to go back and play VoG for the first time because they heard this machine gun's really good. This guy Nightmare says this machine gun in VoG is the best one in the game. I want to go get it. If you buff primaries by 20%, 30%, you're trivializing the content that is not in the portal at the highest difficulties. You're trivializing those initial difficulties of the portal, and you're not preparing players for the fact that even with a 20% buff, primaries probably still aren't going to be that great. Granted, I know I just told you earlier that Rampage is like a needle mover for Horror's Least, and that's a 22% buff. But Rampage plus a 20% buff, yeah, that's going to make that gun good. You're just making it so that the already good guns remain the good guns. But you're only hurting the low end of special weapons at that point. The rocket sidearms that are already being pushed out of the meta because of rocket pulses or micro missile frames, as it were. It's a more fundamental issue than just a damage buff. And that's, again, something that Bungie really needs to figure out. I think they need to put more of the content back into the director. I think they need to allow people to go to these destinations and earn a lot of this loot and be able to earn loot. If you're going to tie it to your power, then it should be system-wide. Even if it's a lower chance outside of portal activities, if portal activities just get this base thing, hey, you get a 500% increased drop rate on these things for portal activities, and that just ends up being the current drop rates, and then outside of that, you just get like a 5x negative modifier to the drop rates, but hey, they're there. That's still better than the current system, and I don't necessarily want them to do that. But I'm just saying that having five times less chance to get it, but being able to get it outside of the portal is still an improvement over not being able to get it at all. Moral of the story, primaries are not the problem. It is the way we have to play Destiny that is the problem. And thank you for coming to my TED Talk. And thank you for watching this video. I hope you guys have been able to get your hands on a quality Horror's Least. If you enjoyed this video, you know what to do. Please like, please subscribe if you enjoyed listening to me and my ramblings. And if you guys have any questions about the weapon, questions about my opinions about the sandbox, things like that, leave them in the comments below. But thank you so much for being here. As always, I appreciate you so much, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.